The antiseptic smell hit first, clean and sharp, like a bite on the back of my tongue. Monitors hummed in a steady rhythm. A thin curtain rattled every time someone brushed past. And somewhere down the hall, a baby wailed like a siren. I stood at the foot of the bed with my hands shoved in the pockets of a blue hoodie, trying to breathe like this was normal. The nurse slid a swaddled bundle into my arms. He was warm and heavier than I expected, all soft cheeks and a squashed mouth working like he had an opinion already. My chest tightened, then loosened. I'd rehearsed 1,000 versions of this moment. Me, Marcus Reed, 39, contractor, self-taught at just about everything, finally holding my first kid. My heart did a loud, stupid drum solo. The nurse smiled, brown eyes steady, hair tucked under a cap, badge reading M. Collins, RN. "I don't see the father," she said, scanning the chart on her tablet. "Can you hold him for a moment?" The words were quiet, but they cracked through me. I glanced at Tasha on the bed, sweat-damp hair on her forehead, eyes half-lidded, breathing shallow, phone peeking out under the blanket like a guilty secret. She didn't look at me, didn't say a thing. I swallowed. "I'm right here." Nurse Collins blinked, then dipped her head toward the tablet. "The paperwork. Sorry. No name listed." She adjusted the blanket around the baby, fingers gentle. "I thought—" "It's fine," I said, but the word tasted wrong, like metal. The baby squirmed. A tiny fist pushed free and brushed my jaw. His skin was new paper, thin and hot, pulsing with its own little engine. I rocked without meaning to, caught in that invisible gravity babies have. For a second, everything made sense. The room, the hum, my stupid drum solo heart. Then the second passed, and the nurse's sentence kept echoing. "I don't see the father." I looked at Tasha again. She reached for her phone, face turned away. The blue light painted her cheekbones. "You good?" I asked. "I'm exhausted," she said, flat and slow. "No father on the paperwork?" I tried to keep my voice level. "We talked about this." She exhaled, long and theatrical. "Marcus, can we not? I just had a baby." The baby yawned like a tiny lion and made a soft sound that hit me somewhere old. I pressed my lips to his forehead. He smelled like warm milk and plastic. My arms didn't want to let go. Nurse Collins shifted her weight, professional but human. "I'll give you 2 a minute," she said. "I'll be right outside if you need me." "Thanks," I said, and I watched her leave. Strong stride, shoulders square, eyes that looked at people, not through them. She pulled the curtain almost closed, just a slice of fluorescent light cutting across the floor. I rocked and listened. The air conditioner thumped. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Texts from the guys on my crew, thumbs up and "Congrats, boss." I didn't answer. My brain was running its fingers over a puzzle I didn't want to solve. No father listed. After 9 months of me driving to appointments, building a crib that could hold a linebacker, adding overtime to pay for a fancy stroller she swore was safer. After baby showers where I shook hands with people who hugged me like I'd earned something sacred. "Tasha," I said, "why isn't my name on the form?" Her eyes slid to me, then back to the phone. "Clerical. I was drugged. I don't know what I signed." "Then say my name now," I said. "We'll fix it." She stared at the muted TV on the wall. Silent commercial. A man smiling at a car he couldn't possibly afford. Later, a tremor climbed my neck. I looked down at the boy. My boy? Eyes closed, lashes like commas. He trusted gravity and arms and the world. I breathed in through my nose, slow, and tried to anchor in the weight of him. If this was a test, he was the only answer that mattered. But my head kept tally. 2 weeks ago, Tasha got weird about money. Not the usual, not, "let's budget," but sharp. She asked about the house title, about life insurance, about how fast policies pay out if something happens. She wanted the stroller receipt for warranty. She wanted a new lock on her apartment door. Said the neighborhood changed. I paid. I always paid. I told myself it was what a father does. I kissed the baby again. "Hey, lil man," I whispered. "I'm right here." Tasha's phone pinged. Her mouth twitched into a smile she didn't show me. Something in my chest clicked into place. A cold piece landing on the board. "Who's that?" I asked. "Can you not?" She tilted the screen away. The curtain stirred. Nurse Collins peeked in. "Everything okay?" "I think the form's missing a name," I said, voice even. "Mine." She stepped in, eyes flicking between us. "We can add it," she said carefully. "But I'll need Mom's authorization." Tasha rolled her eyes. "Marcus is being dramatic." The nurse met my gaze. Not pity. Attention. "Do you want me to bring a counselor? Or we can just handle the paperwork?" "Paperwork," I said. "Please." She nodded and handed me a pen clipped to a small board. "We'll start with a paternity acknowledgement form. It's simple." Tasha's head snapped. "We're not doing that right now." Nurse Collins didn't flinch. "It's standard if there's no father listed." Tasha turned away, staring at the TV again. The silence pressed on my eardrums. I felt the baby breathing against my forearm, slow and sure. My name signed 100 contracts, houses, trucks, jobs, a loan that kept my brother from sleeping in his car. My name carried weight I'd earned. I wasn't about to let it float beside this child like a rumor. "Bring the form," I said. "If it's mine to sign, I'll sign. If it isn't, I won't." A tiny smile ghosted across Nurse Collins's mouth. Professional again. "I'll be right back." When she left, I held the baby tighter and stared at Tasha. "If there's something I need to know, say it now." She closed her eyes. "You're exhausting." "Truth usually is." Her lips flattened. "You always make everything about pride." I looked down at the boy, at the soft swirl of hair like a storm on a tiny planet. Pride wasn't the word. Dignity was. I'd built a life with my hands and a second chance nobody thought I could turn into anything. I'd learned to walk away from jobs that treated me like a pair of arms instead of a man. I could walk away here if I had to. The curtain opened again, and Nurse Collins returned with the form. She set it on the rolling table, eyes steady. "Any questions? I'll answer them." "Thanks," I said. Her voice softened, a half-whisper meant for me, not the room. "Take your time. Say." I shifted the baby, held the pen, and listened to my own heartbeat steady into something like resolve. The hum of the monitors felt less like a hospital and more like a countdown. Whatever this was, it wasn't going to break me. Not here. Not with him in my arms. "Let's do it," I said. The pen hovered over the paper like it weighed 10 pounds. My hand didn't shake, but my chest sure did. I could hear the baby's breathing, soft little puffs against my hoodie. The sound made everything else fade. Tasha shifting on the bed, the steady beep of monitors, even the faint wheels of carts rolling down the hallway. I set the tip of the pen on the first line. My name. That part was easy. But the form didn't stop there. It asked for more. Boxes, signatures, dates. A legal net meant to catch the truth. "Marcus," Tasha said suddenly sharp, "put it down." I didn't look up. "Why?" Her voice pitched low, like she was negotiating with herself. "You don't understand how complicated this is." I signed my last name. The pen made a scratchy sound, and the ink bled a little into the paper. "Complicated how?" "You always think the world is black and white," she muttered, eyes darting at the nurse. "This isn't one of your construction contracts." I lifted my head then, meeting her eyes. "No, this is my son." The nurse didn't move. She stood still, watching like she'd seen this before, but wasn't about to step in unless it got ugly. Her presence was steady, though. It kept me from snapping. Tasha sighed, sinking back into the pillows. "You're rushing into something you don't even know is true." The words hit harder than a hammer against steel. My ears rang. I looked down at the baby. His tiny hand had curled around the string of my hoodie like he'd picked me already. My throat went dry. "You saying what I think you're saying?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. She just stared at her phone, the blue glow lighting her face. I put the pen down, careful not to jostle the boy. "Then say it, Tasha. Say the words." The silence stretched. The baby stirred, wriggled, and let out a small cry that cut through both of us. I bounced gently, murmuring nonsense, and he calmed against me. The weight of him made the silence unbearable. Finally, Tasha muttered, "We can talk about this later." "Not here." The nurse spoke for the first time since setting down the form. "Mr. Reed, if there's any doubt, the hospital can arrange a DNA test. It's routine. No drama." Her tone was calm, factual, but her eyes caught mine like she knew how deep the cut went. Tasha shot her a look. You don't need to interfere. The nurse didn't flinch. I'm just stating options. I rubbed the baby's back. His skin was hot through the thin blanket, his tiny breaths syncing with my heartbeat. My chest felt split wide open. I want the test, I said. Tasha groaned, covering her face with her hand. Marcus, you're humiliating me. No, I said, sharper than I meant. You humiliated me when you left my name off that form. This, I pointed at the baby against my chest. This deserves clarity. The nurse gave a small nod. I'll arrange it. She scribbled something on her clipboard, efficient, professional, but when she glanced back at me, her expression softened again. Tasha lay back, muttering curses under her breath. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at the boy. I kissed the top of his head, breathing in that warm newborn smell like I needed it to anchor me. My whole life had been about standing firm when people tried to push me over. This moment wasn't going to be any different. I rocked him gently, steadying my voice. Whatever the truth is, little man, I'll face it. And deep inside, where anger and heartbreak were wrestling, something colder and sharper started to take shape. If she thought I'd roll over, she forgot who I was. The DNA test wasn't something they could do on the spot. Paperwork had to be filed, labs called, samples scheduled. The nurse, Collins, explained it all calmly, like she'd walked people through the same storm 100 times. Her voice was steady, the kind you wanted in a room where lives began and sometimes ended. Tasha kept sighing, rolling her eyes, tossing little looks like she was the victim here. But she stayed quiet while Collins took a tiny swab and brushed it against the inside of the baby's cheek. The boy barely fussed, just scrunched his face like he didn't care for the cold cotton. My chest loosened. He was tougher than me already. Done, Collins said softly. She sealed the sample like it was treasure, labeled it with clean handwriting, and clipped it to her board. Then she looked at me. Not through me. At me. Results usually take a couple days. I nodded. That's fine. Tasha groaned. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing me in front of strangers. I turned my head slowly, making sure my voice stayed even. You embarrassed yourself when you left my name off that birth certificate. I'm just asking for the truth. Her jaw worked, but she didn't speak. The nurse adjusted the baby blanket around my son, my maybe son, and her fingers brushed mine. Quick, professional, but there was something there. Warmth, not pity, but recognition. Like she saw me standing on the edge of something heavy and wasn't afraid to meet me there. You holding him like that, she said, almost under her breath. He won't ever feel unsafe. I swallowed hard, caught off guard. Nobody had ever said something like that to me. Not even my mother before she passed. Tasha rolled her eyes. Oh, please. He's been a dad for 15 minutes, and you're already writing Hallmark cards. Collins didn't flinch. She kept her gaze on me. Sometimes 15 minutes is enough to tell you everything. The baby stirred, making a soft whimper, and I shifted him closer to my chest. My hoodie was damp where his cheek pressed, his tiny breaths heating me through the fabric. I kissed his head again. Marcus, Tasha snapped, you're making this whole moment about you. I just gave birth. I'm the one in pain, in case you forgot. I finally looked at her straight. You're right. You gave birth, and if this boy's mine, I'll never forget it. But if he isn't, then you don't get to use me anymore. Her face froze, lips pressed tight, but her eyes gave her away. She looked scared, not of me, but of losing something. Money, security, whatever game she'd been playing. The nurse cleared her throat gently, breaking the tension. Mr. Reed, if you want, I can step out with the baby for a bit so you can both have space. I shook my head. No, he stays with me. Our eyes met again, hers steady, almost proud. Understood, she said. The room felt split in two then. The woman on the bed who suddenly looked smaller, and the nurse standing tall at my side, quiet strength in her stance. And me in the middle, holding a child who might not even share my blood, but who had already wrapped his tiny hand around something I thought I'd lost a long time ago. My dignity. By the next morning, the hospital room smelled like reheated food and antiseptic. I hadn't slept, just sat in the chair by the window, rocking the baby against my chest. Every sound etched itself into me. The click of the IV pump, the muffled wheels of carts, the occasional cry from down the hall. But nothing was louder than the silence between me and Tasha. She was scrolling on her phone again, fingers moving fast. Not once had she asked to hold him back. Not once had she even reached out. "Marcus," she said finally, voice dry from sleep and complaints, "we need to talk about money." There it was. Not our baby. Not our family. Money. I sat up straighter, careful not to jostle the boy. "What about it?" She sighed like she was carrying the weight of the world. "You promised security, a bigger place, a future, and now you're making drama over some paperwork. You're putting everything at risk." I studied her face. No softness. No glow you see in new moms. Just calculation. "You're worried about the test," I said quietly. "I'm worried about stability," she shot back. "If you start questioning everything, people will think you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, then what's the point?" I let the words sit there, heavy. The point is truth. That's the foundation. Without it, everything crumbles. You of all people should know I build for a living. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't turn this into one of your construction speeches." The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry. I bounced him gently, whispering nonsense to calm him. His breathing slowed again, his tiny fingers clinging to my hoodie string. That little grip said more than she ever could. The curtain rustled, and Nurse Collins stepped in with a warm smile. She carried a tray, 2 cups of coffee, black, steam curling up into the cold air. "Figured you could use this," she said. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. Tasha glared. "Really? Bringing him coffee like he's the one who gave birth?" Collins didn't miss a beat. "He's been up all night holding his son. That counts for something." Her words landed like bricks. For the first time since yesterday, I felt a little taller in that chair. Tasha scoffed, tossing her phone on the bed. "Whatever. Marcus always finds women who want to play savior." Collins ignored her. She set the coffee by my side, close enough that I could smell the bitterness. Her eyes held mine just a second longer than necessary. Quiet, steady encouragement. Tasha leaned forward. "Listen, Marcus, if you're so concerned, fine. But I need you to transfer money into my account. Today. Hospital bills, baby expenses. You said you'd take care of us." I stared at her, then at the boy asleep on my chest. "I'll take care of him," I said. "That's not the same as handing you cash to keep me guessing." Her mouth tightened. "So now you're going to be stingy?" "No," I said, my voice dropping low, steady. "I'm going to be smart." Collins shifted her clipboard, but I caught the faintest smile flick across her face before she masked it. She knew. She saw it too. Tasha leaned back against the pillows, eyes flashing with anger. "You're making a mistake, Marcus. Don't push me." I rocked the baby gently, his small breaths warming my chest. "The only mistake," I said, never looking away, "was trusting the wrong person. But that ends today." The room went silent. Tasha glared. The baby slept, and Nurse Collins stood at my side, like a witness to a line I'd finally drawn in the sand. By noon the next day, the hospital halls buzzed with a different kind of noise. Visitors with balloons, nurses moving fast between rooms, the smell of bleach mixed with microwaved soup. I walked the corridor with the baby cradled against me, trying to stretch my legs and clear my head. Every step felt like a reminder. I was carrying more than weight. I was carrying questions no one wanted to answer. When I passed the nurse's station, I caught a glimpse of Tasha through the glass panel in the room door. She was laughing on the phone. Not tired laughter, not relieved laughter. Sharp, private. The kind that makes you tighten your jaw without knowing why. "Need a break?" a voice asked behind me. I turned. Collins stood there, chart in hand, her scrubs neat, her hair pulled back tight. But it was her eyes, steady, kind, like they had room to hold other people's storms, that made me exhale. "He doesn't like to be put down," I said, rocking the baby. Her mouth curved. "Smart kid. Already knows where it's safe." The words hit me square in the chest. I glanced at the glass again. Tasha still smiling at whatever was on the other end of that phone, and something heavy shifted inside me. Collins stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I've seen this before, Marcus. New fathers left off paperwork. Mothers getting defensive. Sometimes it's a mistake. Sometimes it's not. I searched her face. And you think I'm being played? Her eyes didn't waver. I think you deserve clarity. And I think you already know the answer. You're just waiting for proof. The baby stirred, let out a soft squeak, and settled back against me. I kissed his tiny head, the smell of baby lotion and warmth grounding me. What if the proof says he's not mine? Collins tilted her head. Then you'll still walk out of here with your dignity. And maybe that's more important than anything else. I swallowed hard. Nobody had ever put it that plain. Before I could answer, Tasha's voice cut through the air behind me. Marcus! I turned. She was standing in the doorway, phone still in her hand, eyes sharp like I'd caught her in something. Why are you out here whispering with her? Collins straightened, her professional mask sliding back into place. Just checking on father and child. Tasha's gaze darted between us. Yeah, well, I need him back in here. Now. I shifted the baby in my arms and looked at Collins one more time. She didn't flinch under Tasha's glare. Instead, she gave me a look that wasn't words, but felt like, stand your ground. I nodded once, then stepped past Tasha into the room. But inside, something had already changed. I wasn't just waiting for answers anymore. I was preparing for the fallout. Back inside the room, the air felt heavier. The blinds were half closed, letting in slivers of afternoon light that cut across the bed like bars. Tasha was sitting upright, scrolling again, phone never leaving her hand. I eased into the chair by the window, rocking the baby gently. He was asleep, lips parted, little breaths pushing against my chest. Marcus, she said without looking up, I asked if you transferred the money. I stared at her. I told you already. Not until the test comes back. Her head snapped up, eyes sharp. So you're really going to humiliate me like this? I just gave birth, and you're acting like an accountant. Funny, I said, voice low, because every time you bring up this child, the first word out of your mouth is money. Her lips pressed tight. She looked at her phone again, tapping fast. Then, under her breath, almost too quiet, he'll cover it. My stomach clenched. What did you just say? Her eyes widened. She froze, realizing the slip. Nothing. You misheard. But the way she fumbled, the way her face drained. Yeah, I heard right. I rocked the baby slower, my voice steady but edged with steel. Who's covering what, Tasha? She shoved the phone under the blanket. You're tired. You're twisting things. Try me. The silence stretched. The baby shifted, let out a tiny cry, and I hushed him, kissing his forehead. My chest burned, not from the weight of him, but from the truth pressing closer. Finally, she snapped. Fine. You want the truth? Maybe you're not the only option. Maybe I had someone else lined up who could actually provide. The words sliced through me like glass. My grip tightened on the baby, careful not to squeeze, but my whole body went cold. So that's it, I said quietly. I was just the wallet. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence screamed louder than her words. The curtain shifted, and Collins stepped in with a chart. She paused when she caught the tension in the room. Her eyes moved from me to Tasha, then back. You okay, Mr. Reed? She asked softly. I nodded once, jaw tight. More than okay, Tasha scoffed. You nurses always meddling. Collins didn't flinch. We look out for patients, all of them. Her gaze landed on the baby in my arms, then on me, warm and steady. I rocked him slowly, kissed his head again, and whispered just loud enough for both of them to hear. Nobody's going to use me anymore. Not her. Not anyone. Collins gave me the smallest nod, like she'd been waiting for me to say it out loud. And that's when I knew. The test wasn't the only thing that was coming. A reckoning was. By evening, the room was dim except for the soft glow of the TV on mute. I sat in the chair, baby against my chest, listening to his steady breathing. Every sound from him, every sigh, every shift, felt more honest than anything that came out of Tasha's mouth. She was pacing now, phone clutched tight, muttering into it with her back half turned. She didn't even care if I heard. Yes, I'll handle him. No, he's stubborn, but once the money's in place, it's fine. Stop stressing me, I just had a baby. My chest burned. I stood up slowly, careful with the baby, and cleared my throat. Who you talking to, Tasha? She spun, eyes wide, mask slipping. Nobody. Just my cousin. Which cousin? I asked. Because the only cousin you got lives in Atlanta, and that accent didn't sound like Georgia. Her jaw tightened. You're paranoid. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so the baby wouldn't stir. No, I'm paying attention. There's a difference. The door opened, and Collins stepped in with a clipboard. The timing was sharp, like she'd felt the heat through the walls. Her eyes swept the room, landing on me first. Everything okay? Tasha groaned. Why are you always hovering? Collins stayed calm, unshaken. Because I'm supposed to, that's my job. She looked at me again. You look like you've got something to say, Marcus. I did. My chest was tight, but my voice came steady. Yeah, I've got a lot to say. Starting with the fact that this woman's been talking to someone behind my back, plotting money moves while I'm standing here holding a child she won't even claim is mine. Collins didn't blink. She just nodded slightly like she'd been expecting it. Tasha rolled her eyes. You're ridiculous. Always trying to play detective. Detective? I let out a bitter laugh. No, I just know when someone's lying to my face, and I've let you do it long enough. The baby stirred, let out a tiny cry, and I kissed his forehead, rocking him gently. His warmth kept me from exploding, but the fire inside me was building. Collins stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. Marcus, you don't need to argue with her. You've already taken the right steps. The truth is coming. Her eyes locked on mine, steady, strong. For a moment, the weight in my chest eased. Someone was on my side, not because they wanted something, but because they saw me. Tasha scoffed. Oh, so now the nurse is your therapist? Please. I turned to her, my voice sharp now. Say what you want, Tasha. The test will speak louder than you ever could. And when it does, I'm walking out of here with my head high, not empty pockets. The silence after that was heavy. Collins stood firm. The baby slept again. And Tasha, she finally looked rattled. And that was the first crack in her armor. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds, sharp and golden. I was still in the chair by the window, hoodie pulled tight, baby on my chest. My body ached, but I wasn't letting go. Every rise and fall of his breathing steadied me more than sleep ever could. Tasha was wide awake, dressed in a fresh gown, makeup lightly touched on her face, too polished for someone who'd just had a baby. She was tapping away on her phone again, her voice rehearsed when she finally spoke. Marcus, we can work this out, she said, almost sweet. You don't need to make this bigger than it is. I kept rocking. What's there to work out? The test will tell the truth, she sighed, putting the phone down and leaning forward, elbows on her knees. Listen, even if he's not yours, you've already invested. You've been here. You've provided. You've built a life with me. Her eyes locked on mine, calculating. So why not keep going? You've got the money. I've got the child. We can make it work. I stared at her, stunned for a second. Then a laugh broke out of me, raw and sharp. You're serious? You want me to keep funding your life, even if this baby's not mine? Her expression didn't change. It's stability, Marcus. For both of us. You get to look like the hero, the provider. Nobody has to know. My jaw clenched. That's not stability. That's fraud. That's you using me like a paycheck with a heartbeat. The baby stirred, tiny fingers curling tighter into my hoodie string, grounding me. I kissed his head, my voice dropping lower, steadier. I've worked my whole damn life to be more than what the world said a black man like me could be. You think I'm gonna throw that away just to play stepdad to some lie you built? Not a chance. Her eyes flashed with anger. You'd walk away from an innocent baby? I shook my head. No, I'd walk away from you. The door creaked open, and Collins stepped in with fresh linens. She paused when she caught the tension, eyes flicking from Tasha to me. You good? She asked quietly. I nodded once. Getting there, Tasha scoffed. Oh, of course. St. Collins to the rescue. But Collins didn't rise to it. She just set the linens down, straightened, and looked directly at me. You don't owe anyone silence when they're trying to chain you down, Marcus. You already know your worth. Don't let her make you doubt it. The words hit harder than I expected. For the first time in days, I felt taller, stronger. Tasha crossed her arms, glaring at both of us. You'll regret this. Both of you. I adjusted the baby in my arms, kissed his head again, and looked her dead in the eye. No. The only regret I'd have is letting you keep running this game. And in that moment I knew. When those results came back, whatever they said, my decision was already made. The results were supposed to take 48 hours, but every minute stretched like a rope pulling tighter around my chest. I stayed at the hospital, barely leaving the room except to walk the halls with the baby when Tasha's energy got too toxic. He slept most of the time, his little breaths warm against my hoodie. Every sound he made, tiny hiccups, soft sighs, felt like an anchor. And yet, every time I looked at him, a question burned. What if he isn't mine? Tasha avoided me most of the day. She'd scroll, whisper into her phone, or pretend to nap. Once, when she thought I was asleep, I heard her say, "Don't worry. Once he's gone, we're set." My hands tightened around the baby until I forced myself to breathe. Collins checked in often. She'd bring water, coffee, sometimes just stand by the window like she knew I needed backup. She never pried, never pushed. Just being there made the weight easier to carry. Late that night, after Tasha finally dozed off, Collins came in quietly. She glanced at the sleeping woman, then at me holding the baby. Her voice was soft, careful. "You doing all right?" I nodded, though the ache in my chest said otherwise. "Trying. Feels like I'm in limbo. Half a father, half a fool." She stepped closer, lowering her clipboard. "Marcus, fatherhood isn't just blood. It's presence. I've seen plenty of men share DNA with a child and still never show up. You've been here every second." I looked down at the boy. His tiny fist clutched around my hoodie string like he was afraid I'd vanish. My throat tightened. "But if he's not mine, she'll use that to tear him away from me. And she'll smile while she does it." Collins's eyes softened. "Then you'll let her show who she is. And you'll keep your dignity intact. That's worth more than her schemes." I studied her face, the way she held her ground, unshaken. It struck me then. She wasn't just doing her job. She cared. I swallowed hard. "Why are you helping me like this?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Because not many men walk in here ready to fight for their place. You remind me what's worth standing up for." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of warmth that wasn't tied to the baby, a quiet strength building in my chest. I rocked him gently, kissed his head, and whispered, "We'll know soon, little man. One way or another." Collins lingered a moment, then gave me a look, steady, encouraging, that said, "You're not alone in this." And for the first time, I believed it. Morning came too bright, too sharp, spilling light across the linoleum floor like a spotlight I didn't ask for. The baby was curled against me, still breathing in those soft, rhythmic puffs that steadied my pulse. I'd been up most of the night, half listening to the sounds of the hospital, the squeak of shoes, the buzz of call buttons, the low murmur of conversations I couldn't make out. I kept waiting for that knock, for someone to step in and hand me the truth in a manila envelope. It came just after breakfast trays rolled by. A thin man in a white coat walked in, holding a file tight against his chest. His face was calm, unreadable, too practiced. I stood, careful not to wake the boy, and shifted him against my shoulder. "Mr. Reed?" the man asked. "Yeah?" I said, my voice rough from hours without sleep. He glanced at Tasha, still lounging in bed with her phone, then back to me. "Do you want this privately?" Tasha sat up fast, eyes flashing. "No. Say it here." My jaw tightened. "Say it." The doctor opened the file, flipping through like it mattered, like the page wasn't already burning a hole in my chest. His voice was clinical, steady. "The test confirms you are not the biological father." The words hit like a punch. My knees almost buckled, but I didn't let them. The baby stirred, his tiny hand gripping tighter at the fabric of my hoodie, like he knew I needed grounding. I kissed the top of his head, slow, forcing my body to hold steady when my heart wanted to shatter. Tasha let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. "Well, there it is. Guess you wasted your money on this little circus." "Ati," I turned to her, the baby still in my arms. My voice came low, steady, cutting through the smugness on her face. "No, I didn't waste a thing. I just bought the truth, and now everyone sees you for what you are." The doctor shifted awkwardly, murmured something about giving us space, and slipped out the door. The room felt colder without him, silence pressing against the walls. Tasha crossed her arms, eyes darting like she was already calculating her next move. "So what now, Marcus? You just gonna walk away? Throw me and this baby to the wolves?" I stepped closer to the bed, rocking the child gently. "You don't get to use him as leverage. Not anymore. You lied to me for months. You made me build a future around a story that wasn't even real. And you thought you could keep milking me for cash." Her face hardened. "You think you're better than me? You don't understand what it's like. You don't know what I needed." "No," I said, sharper now. "I know exactly what you needed. You needed a man who'd work his back raw to provide, who'd sacrifice sleep and time just to give his family something solid. You needed a man who'd swallow disrespect as long as it meant a roof stayed over your head. And I was that man. But you didn't want me. You wanted the money attached to my name." The baby whimpered softly, and I bounced him, whispering until he calmed. My voice broke just a little when I added, "I would have loved him like my own. All you had to do was be honest. But you couldn't even give me that." Tasha's eyes flickered. Fear, maybe, or just the realization that her plan had unraveled in public. She looked away, muttering under her breath. That's when the curtain stirred, and Colin stepped inside. She didn't ask. She saw the file on the tray, the look on my face, the stiffness in my shoulders, and she knew. Her eyes softened, but her stance stayed strong. "Marcus," she said gently, "you don't have to do this alone." I looked at her, then down at the boy who wasn't mine, but had left a mark on my chest that no test could erase. My throat burned, but my voice came steady. "I'm not walking away broken. She doesn't get that win." Tasha scoffed. "Win? You're delusional. You just lost everything." Colin stepped forward, standing close enough that her presence felt like a shield. She looked Tasha dead in the eye, her tone calm but firm. "No, what he lost was a lie. And sometimes losing a lie is the first step to gaining something real." I breathed deep, the baby's warmth steady against me, and for the first time since this storm began, I believed her. The truth hurt, but it also set me free. And freedom was worth more than anything Tasha ever promised. The air conditioning kicked on with a cold rush that raised bumps on my forearms. The baby I'd held like mine, was asleep on my chest, his breath dampening the cotton of my hoodie in a small oval. I stared at the manila file the doctor had left on the tray. It didn't look heavy, but it bent the room. Every beep and hiss from the monitors seemed to orbit it. Colin stood near the window, the blinds throwing thin bars of light across her scrubs. She wasn't hovering. She was standing like a lighthouse, present, unmoving, a fixed point I could aim at when the current pulled hard. "Marcus," she said, low and even, "we can loop in the social worker. It protects you. It protects the child." I nodded. My voice didn't trust me yet. I pressed my nose to the top of the boy's head and inhaled that warm, powdered milk scent one more time, letting it burn a line straight down my chest. Then I eased him into the bassinet, tucking the blanket so his tiny fists could escape if he wanted. He sighed, a little sound like air leaving a balloon, and settled. I straightened, felt my spine stack, and turned to Tasha. She had on lip gloss now. Her hair was smoothed down with fresh edges, hospital remote in one hand, her phone in the other. The picture was wrong. It was all surface, polished and hollow. "I'm calling the social worker," I said. My voice surprised me. Steady, not bitter. "We're fixing the paperwork. Today." She rolled her eyes. "You're not in charge here." "Of me, I am," I said. "Of my name, my money, my time." I tapped the file with a fingertip. "And of the truth. I'm not paying your bills. I'm not signing your forms. I'm not your sponsor." She laughed, sharp and brittle. "Oh, so you think you can just walk out and make a scene? Who's going to believe you? You're the man who begged to be here." "I didn't beg," I said. "I showed up." I pointed at the bassinet. "For him, not for your con." The door swung open and carried in a gust of cologne and hallway chatter. A man stepped inside like he owned the day. Fresh fade, bright sneakers, a bouquet of metallic balloons clacking together, the biggest one stamped with Dad in thick gold letters. He was grinning at his phone, camera turned selfie side, before the room even registered to him. Then his eyes found Tasha, then me, then the nurse, then the bassinet. The grin froze. The balloons bobbed, whispering against each other. "Babe," he said, smile rebooting on command. "Sorry, parking was crazy." I looked at Collins. She didn't move, but something invisible locked into place beside me, like she laid a hand on a switch in the wall and flipped on the floodlights. "You want exposure? Here it is, under hospital fluorescence." Tasha's voice went small. "Derek, not now." Derek's eyes slid over me, taking inventory. Height, build, age, that hard edge men recognize in other men when the game turns serious. He lowered the balloons. "Who's this?" "I'm the one who built the crib," I said. "Who brought the stroller? Who kept the lights on? I'm also the one who asked for a test." I let the quiet swallow the space between each sentence. "It came back." Derek blinked. The metallic letters clacked. He looked at Tasha. "You said—" She shot him a look that could cut through cinderblock. "Shut up." Collins stepped forward, calm, authoritative. "Visitor badges are at the front desk. Before any of this continues, I need to see his band," she said, nodding at Derek's bare wrist. She wasn't being petty. She was protecting the smallest person in the room. Derek shifted, tucking the balloon's ribbon into his fist. "I'm the father," he said too loud, like volume could make it true. "The paperwork says nobody," I said. "But that'll change. Today." Tasha huffed. "Marcus, stop trying to embarrass me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The AC hummed. A cart rattled by outside. The baby made a tiny A sound and went quiet again. "No," I said. "I'm not embarrassing you. I'm letting the light in." I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped to open a new group call. My thumb hesitated, then committed. Her mother. My sister. My foreman, because he'd fronted me a weekend of overtime to cover a prenatal class that turned out to be a designer diaper bag. The ringtone layered on itself until the screen split into faces. Her mom's bonnet, my sister's tight mouth, Jay's dusty baseball cap with my company logo. "Marcus?" my sister said. "You good?" I angled the camera toward the file, then back to my face. "I'm at the hospital with Tasha. The paternity test came back. I'm not the father." I kept it clean. No extra words. No venom. "I'm telling you because my name won't be used, and my money won't be spent. Not for lies." Her mother's jaw worked. For a second, an old, tired grief flickered there. The kind of disappointment that shows up when you know your child but keep praying you're wrong. "Tasha," she said, soft but sharp. "What did you do?" Tasha yanked her blanket up like a shield. "Everybody needs to get out of my business." "Your business tried to be my business," I said. "That's the only reason we're here." Jay's voice cut in, gravelly, steady. "Proud of you, boss." I swallowed hard. I didn't realize I needed that. "I'll swing by later," I said. "We'll talk contracts." I was talking to him, but I was really reminding myself, my life exists beyond this room, beyond this hurt. A knock sounded, and a woman with a calm smile and a badge that read "Social Worker" stepped in. Collins must have called while the room was filling with heat. The social worker closed the door gently and took in the scene fast. The balloons, the file, the faces on my screen. "I'm here to help update the birth record," she said. "We can list the correct father and ensure everyone signs the appropriate acknowledgments." Her gaze landed on Tasha with a neutral kindness that didn't bend. "And we can go over resources. For you and the baby." Derek puffed his chest. "That's me. I'm the father." He tried to sound proud and landed somewhere between anxious and loud. "Then you'll sign," the social worker said. "And you'll be responsible." She turned to me. "Mr. Reed, we'll remove your information from any charges not directly yours. We can also note that you requested accurate documentation." I nodded, a pressure behind my eyes easing a fraction. "Thank you." Tasha went for the last card she had. "You can't just walk out on him, Marcus." "I walked in," I said. "Again and again. When it mattered. Now I'm walking toward the truth." I glanced at the bassinet. The kid made a sleepy squeak, like a door hinge that hadn't been oiled yet. "He deserves 2 honest parents." "Start there." Collins stepped to the bassinet and checked the baby's swaddle, adjusting the corner with gentle, practiced hands. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The room had shifted. The center was no longer her, or me, or the man with the balloons. It was the child. and the truth we all owed him. I ended the call and slid my phone away. The metallic balloons bumped the ceiling. The social worker opened her folder. Pens clicked. Papers slid. The world didn't stop. It never does. It just moves around the thing you finally set down. I exhaled slow. Dignity isn't loud. Sometimes it's a man putting a pen back in its cup and stepping away from a table he built with his own hands, leaving the chairs he crafted for the people who actually belong in them. "Collins," I said, turning to her. "Thanks." She met my eyes, warm and steady. "You did the hard part." "Not all of it," I said, "but enough to stop bleeding." I looked one last time at the boy, memorized the swirl of hair, the tiny eyelash that had fallen onto his cheek, the way his mouth worked like he was practicing a promise. I let the sight burn in, deep. Then I squared my shoulders and faced the door. I wasn't running. I was reclaiming the ground under my feet. The sliding doors of the hospital whooshed open, letting in a rush of city air, exhaust, fried food from the food truck on the corner, and the faint tang of rain on asphalt. I stepped outside, hood up, hands in my pockets. No bassinet, no balloons, no baby. Just me. My chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out, but at the same time, lighter. Truth always does both. It wounds, then frees. I sat on the concrete bench near the entrance. Traffic hummed on the avenue, horns blaring in rhythm, and the faint rumble of the subway carried under the street. My phone buzzed. My sister. "You all right?" she asked, her voice already tight. I leaned back, staring at the hospital glass doors reflecting the gray sky. "Depends on what you call all right. I'm standing. I'm breathing. I'm not bankrupt. So yeah, I guess I'm good." She was quiet for a moment. I knew something was off with her. I didn't want to say it. "You had that glow in your eye, Marcus, like a man who finally made it." I closed my eyes, letting the words sit heavy. I wanted to believe, thought maybe love could be built like a house. You pour in enough time, money, sweat, it'll stand. Her voice softened. "But if the foundation's cracked," I finished it for her, "it collapses." "I know." We stayed on the line, breathing the same silence. Finally, she said, "Come by tonight. Mom's recipe. You need real food and real people." I smiled faintly. "I'll be there." When I hung up, I sat for a while, letting the city move around me. People rushed past with bags. Nurses on break laughed with coffees in hand. An old man argued with a cab driver. Life didn't pause for heartbreak. It just kept rolling. I was about to stand when the glass doors slid again. Collins stepped out, her scrubs traded for jeans and a light jacket. Her hair was down now, falling in waves past her shoulders. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. It was like seeing the ocean without its waves, calm but still powerful. She spotted me and walked over, her sneakers soft against the pavement. "I was hoping you hadn't left yet," she said. I smirked faintly. "What? Checking if I made it off hospital property in one piece?" "Something like that," she said, sitting beside me on the bench. The smell of her shampoo was clean, fresh, a contrast to the hospital chemicals I'd been breathing for days. We sat in silence a moment, watching the traffic. She finally asked, "How are you?" I exhaled through my nose. "Lighter, but still carrying something." Her eyes softened. "That's normal. You can't hold a child that long and not leave with an imprint, even if the DNA says otherwise." I looked at her, surprised. "You really believe that?" She nodded. "I see it every day. Fathers who aren't fathers by blood but still show up, still protect. Biology's just science. Presence is what makes it real." "Hatsir." I rubbed my hands together, staring at the cracks in the pavement. "I would have raised him, even knowing. If she'd told me from the start, I might have stayed." Collins tilted her head. "But she didn't. And that's the difference. You don't build a life on lies, Marcus. You build on trust." Her words hit deep, like a nail driven clean into wood. I looked at her, and for the first time in days, my chest loosened. "You always this good at putting broken men back together?" I asked, half smiling. She chuckled softly. "Only the ones who want to stand back up." The city buzzed around us, horns and footsteps and distant sirens. But for a moment it felt quiet. Just me and her, sitting on a bench, both knowing something had shifted. I leaned back, feeling the weight of the last 48 hours slide off my shoulders. Guess it's time I start building something new. This time with the right person. Collins looked at me, her lips curving just enough to let me know she understood exactly what I meant. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was ready to move forward. The smell of frying onions and garlic filled my sister's kitchen. It was one of those small row houses in Queens. Nothing fancy, but the walls carried laughter and arguments stacked on top of each other like bricks. The kind of place where love stayed even when tempers flared. I sat at the old wooden table, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of sweet tea. My sister moved between the stove and the counter, hips swaying to an R&B track, playing low from her phone. Familiar. Safe. My kind of healing. "You look tired," she said without turning. "I am," I admitted. "But not the same kind of tired as before." She slid a plate of rice and stewed chicken in front of me. The smell alone loosened something in my chest. "Eat. You've been carrying too much with no fuel." I dug in, the first bite hitting deep, hot and seasoned right. I hadn't realized how long I'd gone without real food. As I ate, she sat across from me, chin in her hand. "So, what now?" I chewed, swallowed, and stared at the steam rising from the plate. "Now, I rebuild, like I've always done." Her eyebrows lifted. "Alone?" I leaned back in the chair, sighing. "I don't know yet, but I'm not dragging dead weight with me. That part I know." She smiled faintly. "That nurse, Collins, right? You mentioned her voice softened when she spoke to you. That means something." I chuckled. "Trust you to catch details I didn't even say out loud." "Marcus," she said, serious now, "sometimes God sends people in uniforms. They patch you up, steady your steps. Doesn't mean you owe them your heart, but if your heart leans that way—" She shrugged. "Don't fight it." I didn't answer. I just finished the plate, every bite filling a hole I thought would stay empty for weeks. After dinner, I stepped out to the stoop. The night air was cool, damp with the hint of rain. Streetlights buzzed, kids laughed 2 houses down, and a couple argued quietly in Spanish across the street. The city never stayed still. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Michelle Collins. Just checking in. Hope you're okay." For a second, I just stared. She didn't have to. She could have left me to my own wreckage. But she reached out anyway. I typed back, "I'm good. With family. Thank you. For everything." Her reply came quick. "Good. You deserve people who stand with you, not against you." I let the words sit, warm in my chest. My thumbs hovered before I finally typed, "If you ever need coffee outside of Scrubs, I owe you one." 3 dots blinked. Then, "Careful, Marcus. I might hold you to that." I smiled in the dark. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't forced. I pocketed the phone and leaned back against the railing, looking up at the sky. Clouds covered the stars, but I knew they were there. That was enough. Inside, my sister called out, "You coming back in, or you staying out there brooding all night?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Coming." But as I stepped back inside, one thought stayed lodged in me. The house I thought I'd built with Tasha had collapsed. But maybe, just maybe, I wasn't meant to live in ruins. Maybe someone had already handed me new blueprints, and this time, I wasn't building for lies. I was building for something real. Queens woke up loud. Truck brakes, someone yelling about Mets tickets on the corner, a bus huffing like it needed a cigarette. I crossed the street to a small brick cafe with fogged windows and a chalkboard sign that leaned like it had survived a storm. Inside smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon, the kind of perfume that settles your shoulders without asking. She was already there. Michelle. Jeans, navy sweater, hair down again. No badge, no clipboard, no fluorescent lighting flattening her face. Just a woman in the daylight, hands wrapped around a mug like she'd earned the heat. "Hey," I said, pushing the door and catching that bell jingle that takes you back to childhood bodega runs. Her smile landed soft. "Hey, Marcus." I ordered black coffee and a blueberry muffin that looked like it had real blueberries, not the fake kind that bleed neon. When I sat, the chair creaked like it had a story too. The table between us was small enough that I could smell her shampoo again. Clean, warm, something citrus hiding under it. I took a sip. Bitter. Good. "You always early?" "Occupational hazard," she said. "If I'm late at work, a baby shows up without a team." I nodded. The tiniest ache moved under my ribs at the word baby, then settled. I didn't run from it. I just let it be there. We sat in an easy quiet for a moment. The espresso machine hissed. A kid in a hoodie argued into his phone about a sneaker drop. Two older women traded church gossip behind us like baseball stats. I broke the silence first. I changed my locks. Her eyebrows lifted, approving. Good. Cancelled the joint card she convinced me to open for emergencies. Put fraud alerts on my accounts. Called my insurance agent. Cleaned out the crib room. I exhaled. That last one was the loudest part. Wood on wood. Screws in a jar. Felt like taking a life apart piece by piece. Michelle's gaze didn't flinch. Taking apart what can't stand is still building. Just backwards. I half smiled. You got a lot of those in your back pocket? Only the ones people forget when they're bleeding. We talked then. Not about Tasha, not yet. About everything else. She grew up in Philly. Middle kid. Single mom who ran a salon and kept the lights on with grit and prayer. She used to braid on Saturdays for tips. Learned to listen better than most therapists. She became a nurse because, her words, it's where they need you when they can't pretend anymore. I told her about my cruise, the way a job site breathes when everyone's in rhythm. About my hands. Scar on the knuckle from a nail gun that misfired. Burn on the wrist from a careless coffee pot in a trailer office with a short fuse. About my mother's laugh, my father's absence, my brother sleeping on my couch the year he got clean. We traded small pieces like cards, and something steadier started building across that table. Quiet, honest, no show. She finally set her mug down. I read your face when the doctor said it, she said slowly. Most men either explode or shrink. You didn't do either. Didn't have the luxury, I said. Not with him in my arms. Her mouth softened. That was the clearest thing in the room. The doorbell jingled again. Cold air swept in, bringing a wet asphalt smell. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. You owe me for my pain. No name, but I didn't need one. The timing was a bad joke. Michelle saw my jaw tighten. You don't have to tell me. I flipped the phone face down. She's not done. People like that rarely are. What are you going to do? She asked. No fear in the question, just curiosity, respect. Exactly what I said I would. Document. Redirect. No cash. All messages in writing. If she escalates, I escalate. Lawyer, restraining order if I have to. I took another sip. It steadied me. But I'm not letting her live rent-free in here. I tapped my temple. She nodded once, like I'd passed a test I didn't know I was taking. Good. The muffin was sweet, and a little messy. I wiped my fingers on a napkin and caught her looking at my hands. Not in that way. More like taking inventory. Working hands. I didn't hide them. They've paid my bills. Kept my name good. You ever think about leaving nursing? I asked. Every time I see a budget meeting, she said, smiling. Then her face grew thoughtful. But the minute a dad like you walks in, scared, trying to be steel, I remember why I stay. Careful, I said. That sounds dangerously like a compliment. It is, she said. Simple. You're a good man, Marcus. The words hit me low and deep. Not performative. Not transactional. Just an observation. I didn't know what to do with it besides breathe. I changed the subject. I've got a rehab job starting next week. Brownstone in Bed-Stuy. Owner wants to keep the facade, open up the inside. Hidden beams under old drywall. My favorite kind. I paused. You should see it when the light hits the brick at sunset. Looks like the house is exhaling. She tilted her head. You talk about buildings like people. They are, I said. They hold us. A beat passed. The cafe door opened again, letting in a burst of laughter from outside. Michelle glanced at the window. You said something on the bench at the hospital, about building with the right person. I did. You mean that? I held her gaze. I don't say things I don't mean. Something warm passed between us then. Not fireworks, not violins, just a click, like a level landing bubble center. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I took a slow breath. You free this weekend? I asked. There's a farmer's market by the river on Sundays. Good peaches. Live jazz if the weather holds. She smiled, small and sure. I'm off Sunday. Then it's a date. Then it's a date, she echoed. and there was a note in her voice, hope sharpening into shape. We lingered. No rush. The barista shouted names. Milk steamed. A toddler banged a spoon against a high chair like he was starting a band. Life stitched itself together in front of us. When we stood, the chair legs scraped the floor. I opened the door, and the bell sang again. Outside, the wind was cooler, hint of rain tucked in the breeze. We walked to the corner where our paths split. Her subway one way, my truck the other. She paused, looking up at me. "One more thing," she said. "Don't confuse surviving with living. You've done enough of the first." I let that settle, then nodded. "I hear you." She squeezed my forearm. Quick, warm, not a promise yet, but a signpost. "Sunday," she said. "Sunday." I watched her descend the subway steps, dark hair disappearing into the city's throat. I turned toward my truck, keys rough in my palm, the day suddenly brighter than the sky allowed. Coffee? Not scrubs. My chest felt open for the first time in months. I wasn't just patched up. I was beginning. The Sunday air was crisp, almost too sharp for September. The kind that wakes you up before the coffee does. I pulled into the lot by the East River, the smell of water and grilled food already mixing in the air. Stalls stretched down the pier, peaches stacked like golden suns, jars of honey glinting in the light, fresh bread dusted white like snow. A saxophone lilted from a corner, warm notes weaving through the chatter. I spotted her before she saw me. Michelle wore a denim jacket over a white shirt, her hair pulled back in a loose bun that let a few strands slip around her face. She wasn't dressed like a nurse, or even like someone trying to impress. She was just her. And somehow that made my chest tighten more than any dress ever could. I walked up, trying to look casual even though my pulse was kicking like a bass drum. "Hey." She turned, smiled, and just like that the noise around us dimmed. "Hey yourself." We started down the row of stalls. She moved slow, touching everything with intention, picking up an apple, sniffing it, putting it back, smiling at the vendor before moving on. I realized she lived in the details, the same way I did with buildings. She didn't just look, she examined, she felt. "You cook?" I asked, watching her hold a bunch of basil like it was a bouquet. "Some," she said. "Enough to survive. My mom's the real cook. Me? I follow recipes and hope the smoke alarm stays quiet." I chuckled. "Fair enough. My specialty's breakfast. Eggs, grits, pancakes if you catch me on a good morning." "Pancakes, huh?" she said, eyebrow raised. "That sounds dangerously like a challenge." We stopped at a stand selling peaches, their sweet smell cutting through the air. She picked one up and held it out. "Try." I bit in, juice running down my hand. Sweet, messy, perfect. "All right," I said around a mouthful. "You win." She laughed, low, warm, real. The sound tugged something in me I didn't even know was loose. We kept walking. The saxophone players slid into a softer tune, couples swayed nearby, kids tugged at their parents' sleeves begging for kettle corn. The whole pier buzzed with life, and for once, I didn't feel like I was outside looking in. At one stall, a woman sold hand-carved wooden toys. I picked up a tiny train, the wheels sanded smooth. It reminded me of the crib I'd disassembled, the screws clinking in a jar like a funeral. For a second, my chest tightened. Michelle caught the look on my face. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, setting the train down. "Just cleaning out the past, I guess." Her eyes softened. "You don't have to do it all at once." We reached the end of the pier where the river stretched wide, glittering under the sun. We leaned on the railing, side by side. The breeze carried the briny smell of water mixed with grilled corn and sugar. I glanced at her profile, the way her eyes followed the boats cutting across the surface. "You know," I said, "I didn't expect to be here. Not this soon. Not with someone who makes me feel—" I paused, searching. "Steady." She looked at me then. Really looked. "You deserve steady, Marcus. You deserve someone who doesn't see you as a wallet, or a crutch, or a last resort." She smiled softly. "You deserve someone who sees you." Her words landed deep, like nails finding the right studs. I let out a slow breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. We stood in silence, the river talking for us. I wanted to reach for her hand but didn't. Not yet. Timing mattered. I'd learned that the hard way. Instead, I said, "You free next weekend? There's a jazz spot in Harlem. Live band, no cover if you get there before 9. Her lips curved into a grin. "You're really stacking these dates, huh?" "Call it rebuilding," I said. She laughed again, shaking her head, but there was no hesitation in her answer. "I'm in." As the saxophone down the pier played the last note of a song, the crowd clapped, and the sound rolled over us. I stood there with Michelle beside me, the river at our feet, the city alive around us, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't just feel like a survivor. I felt like a man beginning again. The Harlem night carried a hum that was half heartbeat, half hymn. Streetlights glowed gold against the dark. Vendors shouted over the bass of passing cars, and the smell of fried chicken mixed with exhaust as cabs lined the avenue. I parked my truck 2 blocks down, brushed my hoodie straight, and headed toward the club. Michelle was already waiting outside. A dark green dress this time, jacket over her shoulders, hair pinned up with a few strands loose around her face. Not flashy, just enough to make the world slow down when she smiled at me. "You're on time," she teased. "Can't be late for jazz," I said. "Feels like disrespect." Inside, the room was small and low-lit, brick walls sweating history, tables pushed close together, candles flickering in glass jars. On stage, a quartet tuned, sax, stand-up bass, drums, keys. The kind of place where every note hits bone. We found a table near the back. The waitress slid waters and menus our way, but neither of us touched them. The music kicked in, and the room leaned forward as one. Sax low and sweet, drums brushing light, bass thumping steady like a second pulse. Michelle closed her eyes for a second, swaying just enough to catch the rhythm. I watched her, caught by the peace on her face. She wasn't trying. She was just there. "This is your spot?" she asked when the first song ended. "Yeah," I said. "Used to come after jobs when the crew got paid. We'd sit back there, share wings, argue over which horn player was the best in the city. Then life got loud, and I stopped making time for it." She tilted her head. "But you came back tonight, because you were coming." The smile she gave me was small but deep, the kind that doesn't just touch lips, but eyes. The waitress dropped off wings, hot and peppered, the smell cutting through the dim room. We dug in, fingers messy, laughing when she licked sauce from her wrist. It wasn't polished. It was real. Halfway through, my phone buzzed, face down on the table. Same number as before. I didn't touch it. "You're not going to check?" Michelle asked, eyebrow raised. "No," I said. "If it's her, she can wait. She's not my story anymore." Her eyes softened. "That's big, Marcus." I shrugged, wiping my hands. "Nah, it's just overdue." The band shifted into something faster, drums snapping, bass walking. The room filled with claps and whistles. Michelle tapped her fingers on the table, her shoulders rolling with the beat. "You dance?" I asked. She smirked. "Depends who's asking." I stood, offering a hand. "The man who finally stopped carrying lies." She laughed, but she took my hand. We moved toward the tiny space in front of the stage where a couple others swayed. My rhythm wasn't polished, but it was honest. Shoulders loose, feet steady. She fit into it, leaning just enough, her laughter brushing my ear like music itself. For a few minutes, the past didn't exist. No hospital walls, no files on trays, no bitter arguments. Just us, sax bending the air, bass keeping us grounded, candles flickering low. When the song ended, we didn't rush back to the table. We stayed close, still swaying, the noise of the crowd washing over us. She looked up at me, eyes steady. "You know what I like about you, Marcus?" "What's that?" "You don't hide your scars. You carry them, but they don't carry you." The words hit harder than the music. I swallowed, searching for something to give back. Finally, I said, "You don't try to fix me. You just see me. That's rarer than gold." We stood there, two people who had walked through storms, finally finding quiet in each other's company. When we sat again, I reached for her hand. Not rushed, not forced, just steady. She didn't pull away. The band closed the set with a soft ballad, notes stretching slow, almost like a prayer. The room leaned in, candles trembling, glasses sweating rings onto wood. I looked at Michelle, her hand in mine, the city alive outside, and for the first time in years, maybe ever. I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I was building. Not with money, not with lies, with truth, with presence, with someone who saw me. The last note faded and the crowd clapped, but in my chest, something else settled. Quiet, solid, unshakable. A new beginning. And this time, it was mine.